The following is brought to you by Vertical Vet. Rethink your GPO.
Good evening, everyone. BV panel coming at you tonight to talk about moms and veterinary medicine. This is something that everyone on this panel is super passionate about and has a lot to talk about with it. I am more than excited to bring it to you and to get your feedback. Please post in the comments anything that you guys would like to see us talking about in the future, what it's been like for you as a mom in vet med, or what it's been like for you as a manager managing individuals who are mothers in veterinary medicine. I would love to hear that. We have the beautiful Katie Spence, who's beside me, so I'm pointing in this direction. Katie is our director of our VPMU program. She is a CVPM. She has her MBA, and she's a mom of two. So I could not be happier to have brought her onto this call. I have Brigette down in the lower corner to me. Brigette is an amazing manager. She is in our platinum program. Brigette has no kids of her own. And so I asked her to come onto this call because I wanted her to be able to get that perspective as a manager and what she has to deal with and the ways that she separates things with her employees who don't have kids and her employees that do. And then I have the lovely Ashley below me. Ashley is a veterinarian. She is in our platinum program. 2 kids, Ashley? Three kids and a new baby, somewhat new baby. And so, yeah, so I'm so happy to have her on the call. And of course, as you guys know, we go through these things before we come on because we want to have a little bit of an idea of what we talk to you about. And we share a little bit of our experiences as moms in veterinary medicine. And what I thought would be like the most resonating to start is what each of us has faced in this industry and how it affected us moving forward. And the way that we viewed the industry after that, I think is really important because every single mother, every manager who's worked with a mom has faced something along those lines where they've had to flex with them, work with them, something's happened. And I think if we bring more awareness to this, where we really take the time to say, how can we better support moms? How can we provide them with a working environment that's psychologically safe, that they feel like they have the flex that they need? I feel we would have more moms in vet med, more of them would stay in this industry and they would feel more supported. So I think it's something really important that we need to bring to light. And so to start, Katie, do you want to start with your story and we can go round robin and then I'll go last?
Okay. Yeah, I can start. I think that the biggest change for me was when I actually had my first daughter. I was a practice manager. And there's a couple of different stories that I could think of. One of the first ones was when I was getting ready to go on maternity leave. And my assistant manager was going to be, heading up everything. I was planning to take a 6-week leave. It's not like it was anything astronomical, possibly 8 weeks if I ended up with a C-section. But we all know I probably would have tried to come back at 6 either way. And one of the things that she said to me I think it was a few weeks before, was that this was going to be one of the last days off that she had. And she, needed to take that or something along those lines when we were talking about the schedule. And I was so taken aback by that statement. And I'm like, it's not like I'm going out of town for 6 weeks or going on, a vacation for an extended period of time. I'm having a baby. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing life into this world. You should be excited. And I was like, that was a very backhanded comment. And so that kind of made me really think like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing something wrong here? Like, I feel like you shouldn't say that to me. And how do you feel about some of our other staff members who have kids? And I can understand it's frustrating. And it did give me a different perspective, especially as a mom, because sometimes I would think when someone would call out with their kid, like, could your husband maybe take it this time or something like that? But then you get the mom guilt and all the other things that I, did not know about until I became a mom. So I think those, are the main things that really had kind of a change in me, even as a manager, becoming a mom myself and understanding it from that perspective and kind of realizing the battles that you have to have, especially from staff that do have kids and don't have kids.
Yeah. Because those are conversations we have on a regular basis, because it's absolutely right. Even like being home with COVID with your kids, you're like, I'm not actively home just sitting in bed sick. I'm taking care of the kids. Yeah. Yeah. So I completely understand. Brigette, I'd love to hear your take and your story.
Sure. So we have a 7-doctor practice. So we have a lot of people. We have one male owner and the rest are all women. So we have a lot of women, a lot of moms. And one of our doctors, when we were still kind of brand new, we had 2 doctors at that time, maybe just bringing on a third. And she struggled a lot with infertility, and she finally got pregnant. We were all excited for her, but her husband is also a vet. He's a large animal vet. And so then the reality kind of sank in, like, where is this baby going to go? And, you know, she felt the guilt of, I need to get back to work as soon as possible. So she came back after 3 weeks, which we were like, you don't have to do that, you know, but, you know, she's trying to take care of things. And we actually took one of the doctor's offices and basically made it an office/nursery for her so she could be there. She actually hired one of our assistants who, you know, they were very friendly. She was also our groomer, and she's our full-time groomer now. But she sat in the room with her and she rocked her, and she, you know, when she got older, she'd take her outside and they'd look at flowers and plants. And I mean, she raised her baby here until she went to daycare, and that was until she was over a year old. And then she had her son and did that very briefly with him, and then they both went to daycare. So we were able to keep her here, but she was able to be present with her kids, still see them in little moments, and, you know, look, she's standing, and she could be here for that. And that was huge. That was huge for her as a woman. That was huge for her as a doctor. That was huge for her as an employee, that the owner was like, look, we're going to make this work. That was a big deal. And I think not just doctors, but a lot of staff would really, really appreciate an opportunity like that. And we can't get past what happens. You know what I mean? As women, we start families. I hired a receptionist because she had the personality and the work ethic. She was in a maternity top when she came to interview. I mean, she was clearly pregnant.
I was pregnant too and got hired at a clinic. I love that you said that. I love that.
So, you know, she actually borrowed the scrubs to come in for the interview because she couldn't afford maternity clothes, like dress clothes, to come in for it because she needed the job. And I said, look, I said, if you want to work, that's fine. And she worked up until the day of. She kept making this face, and I was checking on her, and I said, are you okay? She said, I'm having contractions about every 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my God,
get out.
Get in the car now.
What are you still doing here?
What is it?
I said, what are you still doing here?
I know, right? Yeah. But we've had an RVT, we've had an assistant, we've had a I mean, pretty much we have a kennel person right now who's getting ready to have her second. So, I mean, one thing we pride ourselves with is being understanding that life happens, and it's not a parasite. It's not this fungal infection. It's life.
Yes.
And you're not going to stop it. So why not be supportive and just be kind?
Yes, I agree completely. I love that, Brigette. Thank you for sharing that story. And I can't wait to dive into that later because I can't wait. I love it. Ashley, I'd love to hear your story.
Yes. So I am the owner of a small mixed animal practice. I have 3 kids under 5 for 5 days.
I don't know how you do it.
And the first 2, I was the only daughter. I was solo for the first 2 kids. And so I had maternity stuff like lined up so I could be out. And both times I had to come back early because something fell through, or, you know, I needed to be here. And I had C-sections, emergency C-sections for all 3, because nobody wants to work on their own terms. And I worked up to the day before I had all 3 of them.
Oh my gosh.
So, I know, I'm crazy. So that just feeds into the, you know, I do kind of put work first, and then the mom stuff kind of falls in after. I do think I'm a great mom, not saying that, but, you know, I had responsibility to be here during the solo years. And then now we built up to 4 doctors at one point. We're at almost 3 right now. And I think, especially with my youngest, I have the ability to move things around, and I understand when my staff needs to be with their kids and move things around and send them on their way. Like, oh, you need to take them to the doctor, go. And we have a flex day every week, and my flex day is always me taking my kids to the doctor. So I totally get it if they need an extra day to have their own time too. And I wish I would make more time for me to do it, but
Yes. The self-care that we lack as moms and business professionals is extreme.
And the balance is hard when you have guilt, like mom guilt and owner guilt. And
Yes.
like I need to be in two places at once and I need to wear two hats at once.
Thank you for saying that. Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong at all. Because it's like you're trying to run a business that you want to be successful because you have employees to pay, that you want to have a great career and a great life outside of the clinic. And so you have to be all in there. And it's so hard when you are at home giving your all at the same time. It's like you're burning the candle from both ends. But as a mom, you don't have a choice but to do that sometimes, you know? So I hear you wholeheartedly. And then some of you know my story because some of our followers are platinum managers. And I was, for those of you who don't know, I was a Vertical Vet Platinum member and definitely drank the Kool-Aid there. When it was, I think, April or May of the pandemic, I think it was May 2020, I had come into my platinum meeting, and the night before I had come home from an emergency surgery. It was like 11 p.m., somewhere in there. And I was totally fried because I think we're putting anywhere from like 50, 60-hour weeks at the beginning of the pandemic. None of us knew how long that influx of patients was going to last. We wanted to take advantage of that because what if it died down and then we had no revenue? And so it was like, take what we can get while we have it, because no one knew what was going to happen with the pandemic just a couple months in. It was only supposed to be 2 weeks. And so I kept giving of myself thinking, I won't have to do this for much longer. I won't have to do this for much longer. But right now I'm helping my team. And I don't want my team to have to stay late consistently because I felt like we had emergency surgeries every day. I had emergencies walking into the clinic every day because clinics weren't able to see patients. And so I felt, okay, I'm supporting my team and I'm being a really good boss right now. And then I get home that night and my ex-husband says, tonight when I was putting the kids down for bed, Brittany, my daughter, asked, does mommy still like spending time with me? Because she's not here anymore. And as a mom, I think all of us can agree that that is the absolute worst feeling in the world when you have your 5-year-old think that you don't want to hang out with her because you're working so much. I felt like I totally failed her, you know? And so I came into my platinum meeting, and Megan knows me very well, and brought up that I didn't look like myself. And then I just burst into tears on the platinum call because I couldn't even help myself. I was just feeling like, once again, burning the candle from both ends, except I wasn't doing either job well. I was doing the best I could to maintain the team, but everybody was fried. And then doing the best I could to maintain my connection with my kids at home while I was constantly at the practice. And this is where, as a mom, as I said this to everybody in platinum, I'm crying, I'm sniffling. Everyone is just like, oh no, I've been there. I totally know how you feel. One mom told me that she went to put a note in her daughter's, she always puts a note in her daughter's lunchbox. One time she forgot, this one time, and her daughter said that she noticed it and that it crushed her because she was like, I was not thinking of my daughter and thinking about work, and I just made her lunch super fast and sent her to school. And for my daughter to tell me that that means something to her and I forgot because of work, was the worst feeling ever as a mother. And one of the managers sent me a little card game in the mail, and it said, you know, just to remember that I am always a good manager, whether I think I am or not, but that my kids need me too, and that I can absolutely be a good mom too. And that could help me feel more present with my daughter. And so, one, shout out to my platinum girls. I love you guys. You know, I do. But we are more than just moms and employees. We're people outside of this. You know, we have an obligation to our children. We have an obligation to our teams. How do we find the balance and the self-care to still take care of ourselves at the same time and remember who we are as human beings before any of that stuff started? You know, and I think part of the veterinary society has been sacrifice this time. You have to sacrifice this time. And we're starting to see that shift of this time is just as important as our time at work. And so, Bridget, I love that you brought up that you guys did that, because we talked about that a little bit, where everyone remembers during the start of the pandemic that daycare centers closed. And all of the veterinary technicians were like, oh God, what are we going to do? And so that was what we did too, where we had our euthanasia room. It had a huge brown couch in it because we wanted patients to be able to sit beside their owners, you know, during their euthanasias. And so we put all of our children in that room and put a TV in there, some tablets, and rotated veterinary assistants and myself and the other moms out. And the vet assistants love it because they get a break to play with kids, you know, and so they were all here for that. And we rotated them out so that there was always someone watching the kids, but so we could still get our hours, we could still work and know our kids were taken care of during this pandemic, because some of them had grandparents with like health risks where they couldn't leave their kid with them because it would be too dangerous. And we really didn't know at that time what this was going to turn into. And I posted into a veterinary practice manager group about it, and a bunch of tons of hospitals commented saying that they revamped rooms or revamped an outside storage building into a daycare center so that their team could bring their kids and know that they had daycare, and that was a benefit of working there. And I thought, like, what better employee retention than that? Like, I know in a heartbeat I would have gone to work at that practice because I would have known that I would have consistent, solid childcare. And so with this being said, guys, we've talked about, you know, how this can be hard on moms, but I want to talk about the positive side of this too. So how do we better support mothers and also be cognizant of the feelings of the employees who do not have kids? Like, an example I can think of right off the bat, what about holidays? Do you guys have kennel? Do all of the staff rotate through? And do you find the moms consistently take the same holidays off? And how do we handle those situations? I know for me personally, we had a sign up list, and I would post it at the beginning of the year, and I would say, if we can't get along about this, I will pull names out of a hat, and you won't have a choice unless someone's totally okay with switching with you. And so I'm one of those people where Thanksgiving is a very important holiday to me. I love cooking on Thanksgiving. So I would always say, I'll take any other kennel day if I don't have to have Thanksgiving. And then someone who really cared about 4th of July would be like, I want to have 4th of July with my family, so we can swap this out. And that was how we handled Christmas and things like that, because not every holiday is important to everyone. And so we just sat down as a team and really communicated to each other, what is important to you and what do you really want to have, so that we can make this fair for everyone. And no one feels like, I always have to work on Christmas because I don't have kids, but Christmas is special to me too, you know? So that one immediately comes to my mind. How do we handle holidays? How do we handle things like that? And I think in means of staying fair, Brigette, I'd love to hear how you guys disseminate this out in your clinic, of making sure that everybody's schedule is fair, but we still remain flexible.
Sure. So, I mean, we run into that a lot. There are a few that don't have children by choice. A lot of our staff do, but we do the same thing. We do a sign up. I keep the sign up sheets from last year. So if you worked Christmas last year, you don't have to work Christmas this year.
Love that.
And we do that to stay fair, unless they want to. If they say, you know what, Uncle Joe was a jerk this year and I don't want to see him, so sure, I'll work it. You know, we always try to keep that fair. But, you know, if I work New Year's Eve, I don't have to work Christmas. Yes. You know, so it's one or the other. And even for managers, you know, a lot of people are like, well, what are you doing here?
I was the same. Yes. High five, Brigette. I love that.
You know, we're here to answer phones. We're here to help check people out. We're here. If we sit here and do nothing, great, I'll go buy you donuts. Like, you know, it's fine, but we're all in this together. So we do that rotation. And we do the same thing with weekends. You know, we do a rotation. I have not had to do this yet, but I leave it up to them. I say, you pick your Saturdays. If it comes that there are 2 people off that absolutely can't do it, then, you know, I'll jump in, and that's fine. So long as I don't have, you know, some major thing that, you know, I can't reschedule. I have 3 jobs, so it gets a little crazy.
You are one of the busiest women I know, genuinely. I don't know how you do everything you do.
Those are my children. So that's kind of the trade-off, I guess. But we do a rotation on Saturdays as well. And same thing, they pick their Saturday rotation. And if they need to switch somebody, they work it out amongst themselves. If they can't work it out nicely, then we go to, okay, you did this many and you did this many, so that means it's on you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Ashley, I'd love to hear, as a veterinarian, for you to speak on, especially other moms who are vets, like, what is it like for you in the day-to-day? And then how do you take moments of peace for yourself? Because that is really hard to do. And it is hard to justify. I recently read something where it said, if you are not going to do something that you know is important to you, to go, that's not a priority to me. And if it doesn't feel right coming out of your mouth, then you know you're not prioritizing yourself enough. I've started to do that. If I don't, when I work out, working out is not a priority to me today. And if it makes me feel like it should be, then I try harder to make it a priority, to speak those words out loud, that I'm not prioritizing myself in my own way. And that's the only thing I've recently found so far that like really holds me accountable. I'd love to hear what you do, especially with how many different directions you get pulled in, and the fact that you have female associates there. I'd love to know what that's been like for you.
We are currently an all-female staff.
Yeah. I'm just going to show Chris my shirt.
So since I've had my youngest is really when a lot of this changed for me, as far as scheduling and paying more attention to that stuff. Yes, I may not always do it for myself like I should, but I make sure that my staff does it because I know it's important. So weekends, we're actually taking more holidays than we ever did.
We'll let Ashley come back on and do her tidbit. Katie, why don't you speak on that? Maybe I would love to hear your perspective, especially going into VPMU, where VPM, where you're home but helping managing these practices, and you have a baby that's been going through it. So tell me, how are you managing all of that as a mom while still making time for you?
I mean, it's definitely been difficult with having a second kid, and the pandemic changed a lot. One of the things that you said earlier kind of resonated with me, that you can't have your grandparents watch them. My husband's grandmother watched Elizabeth a lot when she was a baby, and would get sick, and I was able to work because she could watch her. But once COVID came, it was like, she can't watch the baby or even Elizabeth, because what if she has COVID and she gives it to her and she's 80 something years old, and she ends up passing away because of it. I mean, I would never be able to live with myself. So that option was off the table, which made things more difficult. And then we have a second baby that comes along, and little baby Avery's given us a time with her ears and gone through it, and did have to get tubes and everything. And, being able to balance everything has been a little bit easier in the position that I am in now, but it's still demanding because I have these practices that I work with, and there's things that have to get done. They have to get done in a timely manner, just like if I was working in the practice. And so having to balance that, and then also taking time for myself. I mean, I do try to have that little bit of time, even if it's only like 15 minutes of quiet time. One of the things my husband makes fun of me for is oftentimes when I'm driving in the car, it's in silence because that's the only quiet time I have.
I get that. I would be like 45 minutes into my drive to work and be like, I haven't said a word or turned on the radio.
Yeah. The 10-minute drive to daycare to pick them up, it's usually pretty quiet in the car.
Yeah, you're just decompressing.
So, I mean, just little things like that. It can be just as simple as that, or even to the point of saying, this is my flex day and I'm going to go get a massage at some point, every couple months or whatever, or even once a month if I can swing it, that would be great. But so, I mean, just trying to have that time and using it when I can, and trying to make sure I prioritize myself. Like you said, with working out, that's one thing that's gone down the drain, unfortunately.
It's hard. Well, like, it's the same thing. Like, so the reason why I've started to use that is not a priority to me mindset is because I watched a video of this woman who was talking about how we don't prioritize ourselves, and we come up with excuses because we feel pressure from outside life that we don't have time to do these things, right? But realistically, there are so many things that we view as a life or death kind of circumstance, like I have to do this right now, when we don't have to. And we don't have, the laundry can wait, the dishes can wait, sweeping and mopping can wait. this is all pressures from society from before moms were really working, that we have to obtain this household, right? And that was before moms were working 40 to 60-hour work weeks and in director roles. It's when they had a village and they were all stay-at-home moms and they could all lean on each other. Moms don't have that support anymore. I have one family member who lives close to me that I can lean on. She also manages 2 stores. So the amount of time that she's able to provide to me and support is not a ton. And a lot of people have that, you know, so it's taking that moment of it. Am I prioritizing myself? So I am famous for not eating all day. That is my vice. I will go all day without eating. It'll be dinner and I'll be cooking dinner for my kids and not eat. And then it'll be 9 o'clock at night and I'll be sitting there like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat today. And so now what I've done, if I notice it's late and I'm skipping lunch, nourishing my body is not a priority to me. It doesn't sound good when you say it. So it helps me tell myself, no, I need to prioritize myself. I need to nourish my body. I need to exercise because it releases endorphins, and happy people don't kill their husbands, per Elle Wood. All right. So I had to throw that tidbit in there. So for me, it's truly, you know, am I prioritizing my mental health? Am I prioritizing my body and nourishing myself? Because we don't do that as moms. Or honestly, I think in general, as managers, we can really not do that as managers because we are taking care of the team. We're carrying the weight of the practice on our shoulders. We're trying to make sure everything where it should be, needs to be. And then next thing we know, we haven't eaten all day long or had a drink of water. And it's like, we wouldn't want our staff to do that. So, you know, but it's so much harder when we're running a million miles an hour, trying to keep everybody's head above water and everybody feeling good and things flowing the way that they should be. You just get caught up in it. Hi, Ashley.
Hi. See, it's that whole mom guilt thing. I was rushed to join and I feel like I'm letting everybody down.
You are not letting anybody down. You are not letting anybody down. It's the mom guilt though. You're right.
Yeah. It's like, I was late to work today because I had to take more time with the kids. And so then I got started late and then that pushed me, you know, it's just always like, I'm always a step behind and I feel like I'm letting someone down because I'm not doing all the things like I'm supposed to. So how do we get past that as vet moms? That's the question.
Putting that pressure on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. We can't even help it. I don't know about you guys. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering people pleaser, as I like to call myself. So I want to make everybody around me happy. I want to make sure everybody's jiving and in a good place. But I also want to take that pressure off of everybody too, right? And so when it happens like that, you can't help but feel guilty because you're like, I'm dropping the ball. Why can't I carry all these balls? Why can't I do all of this stuff? And I think what we should say is, look at all this stuff I'm carrying and I only dropped 1 or 2 balls. I can't even believe that. Instead of, I can't believe I dropped those 2 balls. What a failure. I'm letting everybody down. It's so hard to not say that to yourself. It's so difficult. And I totally get that, Ashley, because yes, Monday morning, I was trying to get Zoom up. It was taking me almost 20 minutes. I was chatting with them. My kids were running around like crazy. And I had that same thought, like, gosh, I just wish I could just do one thing right, just right on the first try. And I immediately was like, why am I saying that to myself? That is so mean. But we put that pressure on ourselves. And for me, and you guys tell me your thoughts here, I'm feeling the biggest thing we're saying is communicate with our staff, communicate with our moms, find out what they are lacking in support and provide that to them. And then maybe in the same spectrum, we need to communicate that same way with our non-children having staff of what people are going through. Because prior to this call, I shared that my children went through an ear, nose, throat thing for about a year that kept me out of the practice on and off for about 6 months. And it was pretty serious. And my daughter had a nasty infection and they both had to have surgery. It was very, very hard on me as a mother. And I communicated to my team frequently when I wasn't going to be there and why. No one really gave me pushback. No one was like, Angel's never here. It wasn't, so I never got the vibe from my team that we didn't have team buy-in with what we were doing. And I'm feeling like it is a big communication thing. Mm-hmm. But I think we also know in this industry, and I think a lot of service industries, we can tend to assume what that person's intentions might be or why they may not be there, and have a lack of empathy and understanding to them. And so I'd love to hear, how do we do that? How do we bridge the gap and bring that empathy to the team that doesn't experience it? And Katie would be excellent for this, I know, because she has a staff member who went through this, who didn't have kids, and that transition period of knowing and having that empathy and understanding to them when they're enduring all of this stuff on the back end that we don't see on the day-to-day, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it comes down to the communication, like you said. And although when you're in a position of management, you can't share someone's, situation with the rest of the staff, whether it has to do with their children or it's something else and they don't have children. Either way, you can't necessarily share that with your staff, but being able to have open communication, and if they're frustrated, and understanding that that everybody does have to be held accountable for what's going on no matter what. But still being empathetic to those people and trying to give them the flexibility. So, if you're able to give that flexibility to the staff members who do have children, then you need to recognize that in the ones who don't as well, because everybody has their things outside of work, whether that be your children or something else. And so I try to, keep it fair in that mindset. And then, I mean, it does get frustrating sometimes, like I said, that before, that when I didn't have kids and I was like, well, why can't your husband help or whatever, it doesn't always work that way, and everybody's situation is different, and not trying to judge anyone or anything else, and we're just all doing the best that we can do, whether we're parents or not parents, and recognizing that and just keeping that communication open, keeping people accountable. I think those are the important things of trying to keep it fair, and having understanding.
I agree. And I think, like, we've said this, we have this conversation on a lot of calls. It's how we communicate. It's how we bring in team buy-in. It's how we get everybody on the same page. And so I think, Ashley, I know that you deal with that on a regular basis. I feel like you probably have to do that more than anyone in the Zoom call right now, probably.
Yeah, I miss a lot of time, and I have an associate now that's been with me for 4 years, and she doesn't have kids yet. They just got married. But I tried to make it fair by letting her have time off too. Like, oh, you want to go see your friend and help them with their wedding stuff? Here, let's switch our days off. Let's get you the time you need so you can do what you need to do. Because there's times where, like yesterday, I had to leave for a couple hours to take my son to the doctor because I had to get him in, and it was my only day. Like, it's her day off, and I didn't want to ask her to come in on her day off so I could take my kid to the doctor. So I just shift things around. We make things work. And I hate that to be like our mantra, but it's like, we'll make it work. But
I think that we have to be flexible like that, because in a sense, the veterinary society has set a standard that is no longer obtainable, right? The way that we used to do things, we have learned now it cannot be that way anymore. Ashley, you can't run yourself into the ground. You're trying to run a practice and be a mom. Running yourself into the ground is going to kill you. You know what I mean? And so we know that now, like, we have to make the societal shift and be that way with our team, because I think the biggest thing that the pandemic brought to light, which is one of my favorites, is that we're all human in this, and that we all experience hardships. We all experience suffering, and also really great times that we should be able to experience in our life outside of work. And I think we all deserve a life outside of work, a life that fulfills us and makes us happy outside of our jobs. And it can be very hard, especially in this industry, because we're so passionate about it, and we just pour and pour and pour ourselves. And then we're pouring from an empty cup, because that's just what is so hard not to do, So I love that you said that. And I love that you guys are staying that way, because I think that that's probably the future, honestly, being flexible to our staff, understanding that they're human and that things come up and that they do want to be at work, but they also have a life outside of work. And that when those things happen, if we're flexible to them, it's vice versa. They're flexible to us, So I love this. And I love that you ladies joined us for this talk today. I think that it's so necessary for us to make good, large changes in veterinary medicine. We have to have these conversations and keep it relevant, that we're all human, that we're going to make mistakes, that we're going to need time off. But when we're flexible and we work with them, that it makes everybody's lives a million times easier. And then you're not having to reschedule an appointment that you might not be able to get for a couple weeks, you know, because I've been in that horror too. So I totally understand where you're coming from there, and I love it. Well, everyone, I want to hear are you doing anything in your clinic to support your staff currently in terms of pre-K? Do you give them any kind of daycare stipend? Are you helping anything like that at the practice level? What are some situations that you found yourself in that you think other managers experience and you love the way you handled it, or you don't love the way you handled it and think it could be better? This is a way for us to grow, for us to have more topics of conversation, and a way for us to really make changes, I think, in veterinary medicine is by talking about this stuff and encouraging others to have that open-ended conversation with us about what everyone's enduring right now. And I think veterinary medicine is seeing a huge shift in culture. And so I'm happy that we did this today, because I hope that it encourages other hospitals that we've all been at that didn't give us that culture to try to implement that more, so that more people have flexibility and we have more moms in vet med, because they want to be impressive, hardworking employees. But sometimes it can be really hard. When we get pregnant, we don't know we're going to have a sickly child. We don't know we're going to have them in and out of appointments. We don't know if we're going to have a colicky baby. None of those questions are answered until they're born sometimes. And being flexible and being able to work with us and talk it out with us and communicate our needs and your needs, I think is the best way to move forward with your staff. So
Glad you said that, because like my baby, he's 1.5 years, but he has half a heart. So he was born with a severe congenital defect. And that was the hardest thing, adjusting to how much time I'd be out for him, having open heart surgeries and going to the doctors and doing all that stuff. So it's kind of sad it had to happen to me to really shift my focus towards my staff and having them have the ability to do what they need to do. But
no, I think that's definitely important. And I think one of the things that, especially for some of our staff who don't have kids, I think it's really easy to jump to conclusions that, oh, they're using the kid as an excuse again. It's always something with the kids. It's always, you know, but what I try, and I mean, I have to stop myself sometimes too, because a lot of times you have the same repeat offenders, so to speak, is telling them and telling myself not to put intentions behind their actions.
Yes.
So if they say they have to be off because the kid's sick, and you know, maybe they're fibbing, maybe they're not, but that's not up to us to put intention behind it. It's up to us to function and work and, you know, do what we need to do while we're here. Now, if it's happening every single week, if it's happening, you know, habitually, then it's like, okay, maybe you sit down with that person and have a conversation and say, hey, I know you're struggling right now, and I hear that and I see that, and I'm so sorry, but you know, is there something you can do? Can you get somebody, a friend, a family member, something, because now it's affecting the workflow, it's affecting morale. You know, if it's getting to that point, then have a conversation. You know, it's never gotten so bad to the point that we can't talk through it and just say, hey, I know you got your hands full. You know, we've had people that have had gallbladder surgeries. I treat them the exact same way. You know, they're sick all the time. They're not choosing to have a bum gallbladder. It just happens. But I'm not going to say, oh, are you really sick?
Yeah.
They probably are, you know, and again, could they be fibbing? Sure. You know, but I think everybody's probably at one point in their life said, oh, I'm really sick to my stomach. And maybe you really weren't, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the biggest thing, is not putting your opinion and intention behind what somebody does. If you want to know the what and the why, and just say, hey, it's starting to feel like this is getting abused. So you tell me, like, are things really that bad? Like, do we need to try to make other accommodations? Maybe we take you down to part-time while you're going through this. And then when you're better, then we'll bump you back up. You know, those are the adult conversations to have versus, well, she's always out, you know.
Yeah, no,
keep that lip down.
That 100%, you are 100% right there. 100%. because like, it's truly, I think in all situations, people can just assume without even realizing it.
Mhm.
And the other thing too, guys, when we assume, take a look in the mirror. Why are we assuming? Why do we think we know this person's intentions? Take a moment to sit with that for a second, because as Brigette said, like, we all are guilty of having those moments of judgment. Where are they coming from? And then that tells you it's time to have a conversation, you know, to have that sit down and say, okay, something's changed and we know it. How do we bridge this gap? Because just like how you said, Brigette, I'm very team. If two adults are willing to communicate it out, there's absolutely nothing that you cannot get through in any way. As long as you're willing and want it to work and want to come to work and want to make things happen, then you will make it happen. It's just a matter of really sitting that staff member down and not being afraid to say what's going on, because I've noticed a change and I need you to communicate what you need here, you know? And I think that it's so helpful to do that with them. So I love that you said that. Oh, I love this. I guess I wanted to put one plug in before we go out about pregnant moms, because Brigette, you brought up hiring someone who was pregnant. Someone hired me while I was pregnant. And the reason why I left the clinic prior is because they were having me mask down cats while I was pregnant. Yeah. Yep. And never bought me an N95 mask or anything like that to help me while I was doing that. So I left. And then I went into that practice. I was just so lucky. That owner had just had a baby. She was 6 weeks postpartum, like freshly back, freshly feeling that new mom vibe. So she was just immediately like, oh no, we'll hire you. Yeah, this is fine. And they were so good to me while I was pregnant. I mean, so good to me. They brought me a chair to sit in while I was in surgery. They bought me a special mask I could wear. So the biggest thing I could say, guys, is I know when we hear an employee is pregnant, we're like, oh boy, here we go. Because we know all the changes of stuff we're about to have to do, all the precautions we're going to have to take. Try to just be so respectful of those pregnant moms if you can help it, because the veterinarian who asked me to mask down a cat, he just was not educated on that. I don't think that he just did not know any better when he was asking me to do it. And so I think educate ourselves as much as we can on how we can protect these pregnant staff members so we don't lose them for that reason. And then listen to them when they have those fears, because I have seen that happen in previous clinics where like an employee expressed, I'm not comfortable monitoring anesthesia. I'm not comfortable checking for a leak if I don't have a mask. And then one was not provided to them. If your employee is telling you what they need, they're communicating their fears, especially new moms, like the new moms, guys, the fear is on because we have no idea what we're doing. And so it's scary. And so listening to them and hearing them out and providing them with what they need truly will benefit you and that mom in the long run. It will help them want to come back when they have the baby, because they're going to feel like they're coming back to a supportive work environment that was there for them the whole time they were pregnant and will be there for them postpartum just the same. And so I think that that's an important little plug to put out there, is just make sure that you know what you're doing when it comes to putting them in anesthesia, how monitoring surgery, taking x-rays. We don't want them doing that stuff. It's so dangerous. So we just want to be mindful of that, and that we're being mindful of our pregnant staff. So that's my like final plug on there, I guess. But I love this. I love that you guys got to join us to do this. I super appreciate it. Ashley, Brigette. Ashley, thank you, by the way, for sharing about your son. I never wanted to volunteer that information. So thank you for that, because guys, Ashley's a rock star. Like, she's running a practice and taking care of this baby with everything she has. So like, she had,
I understand it more than anybody. I like
yes.
to say. So.
Yes, she is quite literally juggling everything. And so I'm so glad you were able to come on here, and because I was just like, she's one of the perfect people to have on this call, because you have truly experienced the short and wonderful side of what that means for you as a mother, in that you have to be available to him, you have to be available to your staff, and that's so difficult. And I know that you feel pulled, you know, and so it's like, one, I love seeing you smile like that, because you have us always. And two, you are important too. You matter too. You were a human being before this, before you went to vet school, even. You were a person outside of all of that, you know? And I think it's important for us to remember it and to acknowledge that in each other, especially when things like this are happening, where I know constantly are go, 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 go. How do you take that step back and say, this is my time for me now, and I want to prioritize the clinic, me, and the baby, you know? And it's so hard to do all three, and I'm really, really impressed by you. So yeah, seriously.
All y'all are amazing though. I mean, just the simple fact that we have to take care of the kids, keep them alive. I mean, that's the main goal, right? But then also teach them to be nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And then teaching our staff to be nice people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
trying to make it through without just trying to make it through, like actually enjoying every day and finding something, like you said, finding that one thing that like I can't dedicate myself to that today. I'm okay with that. I'm just gonna let that ball drop and move on. But then the things that are really important, like really making the time to do that. And I've been really creative with making time. And so I think that's how I've made it through. Like I will come up with some time for me to sit by myself and do things by myself once everybody goes to sleep. It may be like 11 o'clock at night and I may regret it the next day, but I'm going to make time for myself when I need it. I'm going to make time for the kids. Like we'll go to the museum if I've kind of been working too late every day, like this week. This week's been crazy. So tomorrow I'm off. We'll go to the museum or the zoo or something and I'll spend time with just them, focus just on them. And you know, when I'm at work, I'm focused on work. And so I think that that's how we kind of get that balance.
I agree. Finding presentness in your everyday moments, I think, is really beneficial and helpful. And and truly, you're right. Like we're gonna drop some things. It's just bound to happen. And I think that it's important how we recover from it. Instead of beating ourselves up and saying, why couldn't I do this? We should say, oh my God, look at all I'm doing right now. And I still managed to accomplish this and this. And it's okay that I didn't accomplish this like I wanted to. But it can be hard to reflect back in that moment. I think how you said raising, not necessarily, how do I want to phrase this? Being there for our staff and like being involved with them, being present with them. It's the same thing. Like we're trying to keep our staff emotionally where we're trying to make sure no one's assuming intentions. We're trying to make sure everything is flowing harmoniously as it should be. And that takes active work and active pouring into individuals and giving them what they need. And so I hear you 100%, Ash. When you, what was it you said earlier? Like, I always make sure my team takes their self-care. Like, yes.
I put them before me. I put my kids before me. But I do remember I have to take care of me.
Yes.
Or else there's no point.
The thing is like, you know, when we go into motherhood, and Ashley, I'm not sure if you were on when we had brought this up earlier. The way motherhood is, it was when we had everybody in the neighborhood, everyone was a stay-at-home mom, no one was working, and we all had support. So it was not impossible for us to keep our houses clean or to take care of the children and to cook and to take care of the house because we had unlimited support and a ton of time to do that. Women nowadays are being boss as they can be and working 40, 50, 60-hour work weeks, and they cannot do that anymore. We can't, society expects women to work like we don't have children, but to parent our children like we don't have a job. I read that somewhere and it really resonated with me. Because we can't do that. It doesn't work.
Don't be afraid to hire help either.
Yes.
Get you that person to clean your house so you don't have to. Like wherever you are not able to keep that ball in your arm, like I keeping my, hire somebody to do it, pay for it, because it'll be worth it for your mental state to just pay it out.
Yep.
One of my favorite analogies. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Bridget. Go for it. I'd love to hear it.
One of our favorite analogies, and I think they get sick of hearing it, but it's so true. I was listening to a Steve Harvey motivational talk, and, you know, he was talking about, you know, with people, you know, whether it's, you know, a relationship like a spouse or a coworker or a parent or whoever the case may be, we have expectations of them and what we want to get out of, you know, that relationship.
Yes.
And some people, you know, they're born with a 1 gallon bucket and we want them to be a 5 gallon bucket. But no matter how much water you pour in there, they can still only hold 1 gallon. So asking them to be a 5 gallon bucket is never going to happen. You're just going to keep spilling water. So taking people for who and what they are and accepting that, it's so hard.
Yes.
But we can't, if we're 1 gallon buckets, we can't keep letting everybody and life keep pouring into us, and it's never going to get bigger. The bucket is the same size. So sometimes you just have to stop the flow, and you have to say, you know what, I can't take any more. Like, I have to stop and deal with this, and then I drain my bucket, and then you can add more on. But having those boundaries is something that I struggle with a lot. And I'm the same way as you, Angel. Like, I want to please everybody. I want to keep everybody happy. And, you know, as this is broke, okay, let me fix it. Let me do this. And I feel like I have to do it like right now, get it done, because there's going to be another problem coming. If I don't do this right now, it's not going to get done. And then the world's going to end and I'm a terrible human being. Like, that's not it. You're just exceeding the size of your bucket.
Yes. I love that you said that. Because the thing is, I think society, like, this was my biggest problem with the Army. Okay. When I was in the Army, everyone gets promoted up into leadership. Everyone is kind of asked the same of us, right? We all have the same opportunities to grow. I don't think that is the way it should be. Not everyone's meant to be a leader. Not everyone wants to lead or finds passion in that, you know? And I always used to say, like, you're trying to make everybody the same, but everyone in the military brings their own unique characteristic, their own leadership style, or their own, like, people management, I guess. Like, the way that they talk, communicate, you know, is very different. Expecting everyone to be the same and to handle the same, to multitask the same, to lead the same is an unfair way of looking at life, because we're all very different, and we're all very different in the way that we communicate, the way that we lead, the way that we live our day to day. And there are people who want that responsibility and people who don't. Expecting it of them is very, very hard. And so I love that you said that, because it's like, we cannot expect our staff to all be the same, all deliver the same, because they're very different people with different lives, different suffering. And so it's, yes, this is the standard we uphold, and we want to hold you guys accountable. We know where you all fall and stand in this, you know, category. So I love that you said that. And what I was going to say, Ashley, is just like, my 5 and 7-year-old, I've started having them put away their own laundry. I don't even care anymore. I don't even check the drawers. I don't care if their clothes are wrinkly. I don't care if the underwear is mixed with the pants. It doesn't.
Just let it go. Let it go. It got done. That's all that matters.
Yep.
Box checked.
Yep.
Pick your battles.
Yes, pick your battles, guys. Especially even if you're not a mom, even if you're just a person in your everyday life who's like, I'm struggling with the fact that I can't get laundry done, I can't get dishes done. Thank you. We put this pressure on ourselves, guys, especially as women. We put this pressure on ourselves. We have a standard to uphold, because that is the way it's been for the last 50 years, and we can't do it anymore. Bridget, you said you have 3 jobs. I can only imagine how many hours you're working. Katie, the same with 2 kids. Ashley, as an owner, I can only imagine how many hours you guys are putting in. And so it's like, when we're doing all of this stuff, there are things that we have to let go and have to be okay with letting go, and accept that it doesn't make us any less of who we are. So I don't know why we've been made to think that way for most of our lives, that if we can't do laundry, we are less of a human being. But truly, somehow that was communicated along the line to us as people. And I don't know why. I hate that, because it has no standard of who you are as a person, you or you. So
You literally had that meltdown last night.
I'm over here with car seats that have been needing to be cleaned for weeks, so I can get Avery in the bigger car seat.
As you all know, I'm recording in a different space, and I had to move laundry out of the way to do the recording, so you couldn't see it in the background. So I think it's just admitting that we're all human. I think, honestly, too, everyone is struggling in life in some shape or form right now, in terms of like how we're doing our day-to-day, how we measure up, where we fall in the society of things. I'm not doing enough. How can I do more? That measure that we have. And so it tends to weigh on us regardless, let alone this extra pressure that we feel of what we need to provide for our children at that same time. And that can be really difficult. So I'm excited to see what this webinar does. I'm excited to see where it goes and the changes that it brings. And please, guys, put comments in on anything that you felt that resonated with you during this. I'd love to hear it. and that's what helps us drive more ideas in terms of how we have these panels and discussions. I want to thank Ashley and Bridget for coming on. You guys rock so much. Katie, as always, I love doing these videos with you. Katie's like my video partner now. So I'm really happy that we got to have you guys. Please call me if you need anything at all. And otherwise, we will see you all in the next panel in August, which is pretty crazy to think about, guys. We're going on to month 8 in 2022. When did that happen? Oh man. Well, I'm going to sign us out for the night and tell everyone to have a wonderful month.